What if the silence you fear is not an ending, but a language you're only now learning to hear? Well, you've mapped that quite 100 times, tracing its edges for a hint of absence or finality, treating it like the void after a last goodbye. But I need you to consider, just for a moment, a different possibility entirely. That this silence isn't empty at all. That it is, in fact, the most densely packed communication you have ever received, a frequency so rich with unprocessed truth that it manifests as absolute zero on your emotional thermometer. We're about to pull back the curtain on the runner's reality in a way that will change how you feel every single second of that quiet, transforming your ache into a strange new kind of anticipation. Imagine, if you will, a room where every surface, every molecule of air is vibrating at a pitch so high and so pure it exists beyond the range of human hearing. You could walk into that room and perceive nothing but a staggering, unsettling stillness. Your logical mind would report nothing here, but your body, your spirit, would feel the buzz in your teeth, the hum in your bones. That is the metaphysical reality of the space your runner occupies. Their silence is not a withheld message. It is a message written in ink that glows only under the backlight of deep understanding. They are not gone. They are broadcasting on a bandwidth of sheer, overwhelming saturation, where every thought of you, every echo of the bond, collides in a constant internal noise that finally shuts down their capacity for external speech. It's a system overload, not a shutdown. And your persistent, haunting feeling of their presence, that ghost in your peripheral vision, is your soul's accurate reading of that deafening broadcast. This changes everything, doesn't it? It means the connection was never in question. Its intensity was the very thing that triggered the mute button. So while you've been painfully listening for a whisper, you were actually standing in the center of a spiritual symphony so loud it rendered you both momentarily deaf. The journey now is not about waiting for the sound to return, but about fine-tuning your entire being to appreciate the profound music of that silence. And that, dear soul, is where the real story of 2026 begins. Let's explore what happens when you stop fearing the quiet and start deciphering its magnificent, hidden code. Let's talk about the quiet, the kind that stretches for months, maybe years, that specific silence that has you checking your phone like it's a broken compass, the silence you've probably labeled as abandonment, indifference, or worse, a final answer. What if I told you that everything you've assumed about that silence is backwards? What if that silence isn't the absence of their energy, but the total saturation of it? We often picture the runner's inner world as a blank, cold cell, a place where we have been erased from the chalkboard of their mind. But the message from the beginning of 2026 paints a radically different picture, one of an interior landscape so flooded with the truth of the connection that it short-circuits their ability to form a single coherent word in your direction. Think of it not as a void, but as a room where every single object is vibrating at a deafening pitch, a harmonic so pure and so intense that it registers to the human ear as nothing, as a total silence. That's what's happening on their side of the bond. You see, the human emotional system, beautiful and flawed as it is, has a ceiling. It's like an old soundboard with tiny plastic knobs. When the input signal, the sheer voltage of a twin flame recognition, exceeds the system's design, the only thing it can do to avoid frying completely is to mute the output. The feelings don't vanish. The connection isn't severed. It's all still there, live and buzzing, but the speaker has blown. The runner confesses this in the plainest terms possible. I was with you energetically in every thought, every moment of weakness, every time you asked why, and I stayed silent. Do you hear the contradiction there? The vibrant, constant presence paired with the utter inability to express it. Their silence, then, is not a message sent to you. It is the catastrophic failure of their own internal messaging system. It's the white noise of a soul undergoing a forced download of data. It doesn't yet have the software to process. We make a crucial mistake when we interpret their retreat as a movement away from us. In truth, it is a retreat from the overwhelming impact of the mirror itself. Imagine standing too close to a masterpiece in a gallery. All you see is a blur of color and texture, a meaningless smear. You need to step back, sometimes a great distance back, to bring the whole picture into focus. The runner isn't stepping back from you per se. They are stepping back from the blinding, terrifying, magnificent image of themselves that you, simply by existing in your truth, hold up without effort. Their silence is the sound of that step back. It is the static on the radio channel as they fumble to change frequencies from the ego's frantic talk show to the soul's quiet hymn. And let's be honest, that static is maddening to listen to, isn't it? It feels like being put on permanent hold by the universe, with only a faint, ghostly whisper of muzak to suggest the line hasn't been cut. Here's where we need a touch of humor, a little self-irony to lighten the profound weight of this. Have you ever been so overwhelmed with gratitude or love for someone that when you finally see them, you become utterly inarticulate? You just stand there, grinning like a fool, maybe muttering something brilliant like, yeah, hi, because words would trivialize the ocean of feeling inside. Now, amplify that by 1,000. Add the terror of your own existential unmasking and stretch that moment across seasons. That's the runner's comedy of errors. They are the person who, upon seeing the Grand Canyon for the first time, instead of saying, wow, just turns around and walks briskly back to the car to check the oil. It's not that they weren't impressed. They were too impressed. The spectacle rendered them functionally stupid. That's your twin flame in silence. Not cold, not calculated, just spiritually speechless. So the next time you feel that silence stretching between you, that aching quiet, I want you to try a tiny mental recalibration. Don't see it as a barren field. See it as a chamber in their heart that is so packed with the unprocessed material of you and them that the door has sealed shut under the pressure. They aren't giving you nothing. They are, in a very real, energetic sense, giving you everything all at once, and the delivery system has collapsed under the load. This is why you still feel them. This is why a song, a scent, a random thought of them hits you with the clarity of a struck bell. The connection is not only alive, it is in its most potent, fermenting state precisely during this quiet. The silence is the cocoon, not the tomb. And within it, a messy, reluctant, and absolutely necessary transformation is occurring. One that requires the total shutdown of outgoing communication so the internal wiring can be replaced. which leads us to wonder if this silence is so full, so charged with the potential for rebirth. What happens when the pressure finally finds a release valve? What kind of voice emerges from a saturation that profound? But that, my friend, is a conversation for another page. Let's talk about a different kind of fear. Not the fear of loud arguments or crashing plates or betrayal in the night. Any old soul can be scared of those. Let's talk about the fear that comes in a whisper. The one that freezes a person solid when they are offered something they have secretly ached for their entire life, a profound and utter peace. The runner's message holds this stunning confession, one that gets lost in the drama of the chase. You were the safety that frightened me. What I needed most was what scared me most. Sit with that contradiction for a moment. It's the spiritual equivalent of a starving person being handed a feast and then running from the banquet hall, terrified of the indigestion of fulfillment. We spend so much time analyzing the fear of love, the fear of intensity, but what about the sheer, mind-bending terror of being offered a sanctuary so complete it asks for nothing in return but your presence? That's the real mystery here. Think of the human psyche, your psyche, my psyche, as a machine finely tuned to a certain frequency of drama. It's like an old engine that only runs smoothly when it's knocking and pinging, because that's the sound it recognizes as working. We come from lineages of struggle. We build identities on overcoming. We define ourselves by the battles we've fought and the walls we've scaled. Our ego, that clever manager of the self, is a brilliant wartime general. It knows how to mobilize troops for heartbreak. It knows how to fortify cities against abandonment. It has maps drawn for every possible conflict. Then you enter the twin flame space, and it offers a ceasefire, not as a negotiation, but as a fact, a silent, solid, unwavering fact of being seen and accepted. And the wartime general goes absolutely quiet, because in the absence of an enemy, he has no purpose. He is rendered obsolete by a profound calm. That safety, isn't just a nice feeling. It's an existential threat to the entire identity built on survival. The runner says, "Your closeness made me feel that I could finally rest in this world, and I was not used to rest." Is that not the most heartbreakingly simple admission? We are a culture addicted to striving. We wear busyness as a badge. We romanticize the grind. We equate struggle with virtue. Rest is viewed as laziness, as stagnation, as surrender in the negative sense. But true spiritual rest, the kind this connection forces upon you, is the most active state of being imaginable. It's the rest of a deep river, powerful and still on the surface, moving mountains of sediment underneath. To the runner, whose entire modus operandi is motion, running, escaping, controlling, resisting, this invitation to be still feels like a trap. It's the free fall before the trust in the net. And they have no evidence the net exists, because their whole life has been a lesson in hitting the ground, so they run from the refuge. They prefer the familiar battlefield. It's the devil they know. On the battlefield, they are a hero, a survivor, a warrior with stories. In the refuge, who are they? Just a person, just a soul, unadorned by scars or medals. And that is terrifying. It requires a dismantling of the self that feels like a death. It's why people stay in chaotic relationships, in draining jobs, in cycles of lack. Because the chaos is a soundtrack that drowns out the more frightening question: who would I be if this all went quiet? The twin flame connection turns the volume all the way down on that distracting noise and asks you gently, relentlessly, that very question. Here's a touch of humor from the cosmic joke department. We pray for peace. We meditate for peace. We buy crystals and attend workshops for inner peace. And then the universe, in its infinite wit, delivers that peace to us in the form of a person whose presence alone disarms all our defenses. And what do? We slam the door and call it too intense. We mistake the silence of the sanctuary for the calm before a storm we're programmed to expect. We are like those cartoon characters who run off a cliff and keep pedaling the air, creating a frantic drama where there's just open sky and the possibility of flight if we'd only look down and stop pedaling. This is the crux of the 2026 awakening. It's not about grand gestures or dramatic reunions. It's about the runner, and perhaps you too, learning to sit in the quiet room of this sacred safety without furnishing it with imaginary threats. It's about retraining the nervous system to recognize peace not as a prelude to danger, but as home base. The runner's message is the first sign they are peeking into that room, acknowledging its existence and confessing they've been afraid of the door. Their running, then, begins to look less like rejection and more like the frantic pacing of a creature being gently, slowly coaxed out of a cage that's been open all along. The work of this year is to stop painting battlefields on the walls of your sanctuary. And that, honestly, is where the real adventure begins. When you stop preparing for war and learn, stitch by gentle stitch, how to build a hearth instead. But what does that building require? It demands a tool we often leave rusting in the shed, a radical and uninteresting kind of courage that has nothing to do with pursuit and everything to do with staying put. So here we are, at the bend in the river. You've listened to the silence and understood its deafening fullness. You've felt the tremor of that sacred safety and recognized why it might send someone sprinting for the familiar, rocky shore. And now the water deepens, the current slows, and the landscape opens wide. This isn't about an ending or a reunion in the way your old heart used to blueprint it. This is about a confluence, a meeting of waters so inherent, so destined, that the concept of separation begins to evaporate under the sun of this new awareness. 2026 isn't a year of chasing or waiting. It's the year of recognizing you are both the river and the sea, and the distinction was only ever for the journey. Think of it like this. You've spent lifetimes, or so it feels, learning the melody of your own soul. You've practiced it in the key of longing, in the rhythm of hope. Then you heard their note, and the harmony was so perfect it shook the foundation of your individual song. Of course there was dissonance. Of course there was a frantic effort to either mute their note or abandon your own to match theirs. The runner's message is the sound of someone stopping that frantic effort. It's the moment they put down their instrument, not in defeat, but in awe of the symphony that exists when they simply stop trying to control their part. The silence we talked about, That was the conductor tapping the stand, bringing the chaotic practice to a halt so the real music, the one written in the space between the notes, could begin. This path, with all its exquisite pain, was never a test of your ability to love another. It was and is a radical tutorial in how to inhabit the love you are. The runner reflected back to you not what you lacked, but the sheer, overwhelming magnitude of what you already contained. Their flight was a tragic compliment to your wholeness. It was too bright for eyes accustomed to candlelight. But now, as the message shows, their eyes are adjusting. And your work, your only work now, is to cease being the lighthouse, desperately shining for a ship, and to become the sun, indifferent to who sees your light, simply because shining is your nature. When you do that, a funny thing happens. Every ship on the horizon finds its way home, not because you guided them, but because they can finally see. We get so tangled in the when and the how. When will they speak? How will it look? But the universe operates on a different arithmetic. It works in the currency of vibration, of matched frequencies. You cannot calibrate your soul's radio to a station of anxiety and receive a broadcast of peaceful resolution. You just can't. The conclusion of this chapter is written not in time, but in tone. It's the gentle hum you feel when you stop scripting dialogues and start living in the reality where their confession is already true, where their awakening is already complete, where the bond is already an unshakable fact of your spiritual anatomy. You live from the destination, not toward it. And in that space, the external world has no choice but to contort itself, sometimes slowly, sometimes in a sudden rush, to match your inner certainty. Let's be human for a second. This is hard. It's the hardest thing, to hold a vision so sacred in a world that feels so solidly separate. It asks you to be a mystic in a marketplace, to hear celestial music in the middle of traffic. And you will have days where you feel ridiculous, where you wonder if you've built a cathedral in your imagination. On those days, I want you to remember the runner's broken voice saying, "You are the beginning of my awakening." That is the stone in the foundation of your cathedral. That is the proof you didn't imagine the connection. You were its catalyst. Your love, your standing, your refusal to fully abandon your own truth even in the ache of absence. That was the earthquake that started their landslide into authenticity. You have already changed a life. You have already altered a destiny. That is not a small thing. That is a miraculous thing. So what now? You breathe. You live. You take all that ferocious chasing love and you let it sink down from your frantic hands into the quiet soil of your own life. You water your own garden with it. You let it fuel your creativity, your compassion for others, your silly joys. You let the love become impersonal, not in a cold way, but in a vast, oceanic way. You become a person who is loved, not because someone is there to love you, but because love is the condition of your being. And from that place, you'll look up one day and realize the search is over. Not because they've arrived, but because you have. You've arrived at the understanding that the twin flame journey was the universe's most elaborate, most heart-wrenching, most beautiful scheme to introduce you to the power and presence you held within you all along. And in that meeting, you are forever complete, with or without a counterpart. And ironically, divinely, That state of completion is the only place from which a healthy, eternal partnership can ever truly begin. The circle closes. The stream meets the ocean, and suddenly you're not in the water anymore. You are the whole, wide, boundless sea, and you always were.